Social anxiety is a judgment of oneself and a fear that others will see it and judge it. 1 in 3 people will go through more than one major depressive episode in their lives. Medication can help them, but it isn't the solution to it.
How will I be able to love the people in the longest run possible if I am no longer there to be able to assist them?
The self-love movement swung way too far. If I the shirt off my back person, then I'll probably die trying to get them well. If I just do the self-love part, I can watch other people struggle, but I can rationalize it as self-love. I'm still in that judgmental space.
Being able to be present, do you believe that that comes with repetition or the switch that someone can make?
We're not good in being present in the Western world. In fact, we're awful at it. Put your phone away from you. You're taking in 15,000 times more information in a flurry than you were 20 years ago. And you're expecting that when you turn that off, the next 10 seconds, you should just be able to concentrate.
Is my life a pursuit of my potential, or is my life a creation of my potential? How does one find the balance between striving to live for a long time or striving to live for a good time? And would you say that there's a difference between someone that is mentally ill versus someone that doesn't have the necessary brain health developed to be able to optimize through their day?
This is best practice, good science. The number one thing that helps us understand that inner search is...
Welcome to Unlocking Your Potential. I'm Sebastian, and in today's episode, we're diving into the fascinating world of psychology, high performance athletics, with none other than Matt Bain, and he's a PhD candidate in psychology, specializing in personality, intrinsic motivation. As a registered psychologist, his expertise knows no bounds. Join us as we dive deep into the mind of one of the most remarkable educators and mentors I've had the privilege to know. Get ready to unlock your potential with Matt Bain. Hi, Bain. How are you doing?
That was phenomenal. Holy cow. I think I'm going to take a minute here. Who the heck are you talking about?
That's you, man. That's you. But yeah, so at the essence of your work, what are you aiming to achieve? What do you hope to teach people? And what are you hoping to provide whoever crosses you?
It's funny, Seb, because I think that's an evolving process. I think as an educator, I got more from the time in my classes with time with students, getting to know, getting to understand. And I found that that was a wonderful part of teaching, but really where I found that connection was in talking, one-on-one with students, talking one-on-one with clients, talking one-on-one with athletes, talking one-on-one with coaches, and being able to take the deep dive and ask the questions that I think help them and see that wherever they were, whether it was on an education journey, whether it was on a personal, high performance journey, whether that was them diving deep into understanding a sense of depression for themselves. To me, it didn't matter. It was all about a person, that human, who's really looking to perform better in their life. Even in depression, the depressive triad is, this sucks in my world, the world sucks, I suck. Like it's a constant cycle. And so you still have someone, even in that state, who really does see that they're not performing in their lives the way they want to. We talk about being able to get to that place of like, I have potential, like you say, like unlocking your potential. Someone who sees like I have potential, but I'm just not there yet. I want to meet them where they are. And I've always sort of prided myself on being able to understand that person, understand where they want to go, understand how they want to get there, not how I think they can get there. And that's really where the joy is in life. And it's really, really humbling, I think, to be with people, whether that's, on the Olympic stage, whether that's sharp end of the spear in business, wanting to be better in their own world for their own mental health, wanting to be present, wanting to be a great learner. I just think there's so much to us as people that we need others who are going to sit in that space with us and try to figure it out with us.
No, yeah, I definitely want to talk about this because I find myself very much in that section where I'm like constantly seeking and trying to delve into honing on my potential. I know that I have all the tools necessary to be able to achieve what I'm looking to get to. However, where I'm at currently is not yet there. So then I find myself oftentimes having a lot of friction with who I currently am versus who I'm striving to be. Now I'm trying to find that balance because it's easy to lose enjoyment in the process to find yourself because you're completely, I guess you could say, like, I'm comparing myself to who I'm trying to be. So it's constantly a chase. I guess, yeah, at the end of the day, a comparison is the biggest thief of joy. So is my life a pursuit of my potential, or is my life a creation of my potential?
Well, what one feels more organic to you?
My whole life, it has gone for thinking, hey, Seb, you can achieve this. You are this person, but you need to get there. So it has very much been more, I am reaching for the future instead of focusing on the present. And that's why there's been a lot of friction, because I can almost feel like, hey, why am I not allowing myself to be who I believe that I am? Is it maybe because I am not that person? Is it maybe because I can't achieve it yet? Or do I need to just come to acceptance that that's who I am? Then as soon as I do accept, then I can build off of that. Am I trying to achieve someone that I am not? You know? So I truly believe that I am, but because there's so much friction, that I think that's what holds me back to be able to just enjoy the moment, because I am constantly just focusing on the future of who I want to be.
I'm going to use that word. I like that word. Like when you're in that space with friction, how do you identify that that's what's going on? Like, what is it? Is it something within you? Is it something others around you in your inner circle would draw attention to? Is it something you notice a nuance in, like, your day to day? Is it more emotional? Like, I'm just kind of throwing things out because I like that. I like that word. Is how do you know that it's going on?
I think I know that it's going on because it's not as free flowing as, I guess, going through your day to day and not having to think about it. It is not as free flowing as kicking back, watching some episodes of The Office, and starting your day nice and smooth, going outside, taking a walk, going to play soccer. Like, it's not as, oh my God, I can't wait to do this. Even though it's, oh my God, I can't wait to be this person. Like, this is homework for me to become this person. And am I trying to become this person, someone that I'm not? Or do I just need to keep working until it becomes who I am? So and I think that's where that friction is. It's like, okay, I'm trying to strive for something bigger because I have very, very, very high expectations of myself. But also there is that battle of, wait, is there acceptance that needs to be made also in who I am currently, which will let me have a healthy relationship with my growth.
Let's dive into that, like that person part, right? We've got a lot of sort of like blips on, like, you've got to be yourself, you got to love yourself, you got to, you've got to get up and perform this sense of self. And I'm always trying to pause it. I want to click on that because I want to understand what someone is thinking of when they're saying the word self, right? What are the ingredients that are in the self that they're suggesting they're going to love, right? What are the ingredients that are within that self that they're suggest that they're going to find a better version of? Do they need more of an ingredient, right? So what are the ingredients of the self that you have expectations for?
That's a very big question for me, because I thought I believed what it was, but then you brought it into question, and that's how this conversation came about to begin with. Because I believe that it came from trying to almost max out your stats, max out your physical stats, be as healthy as you can, max out your knowledge, fuel your brain, max out your entourage with people that can help you grow. But then you asked me, which was like from the video that I had posted where I'm doing like a SE 75 days hard, staying disciplined, staying consistent. And I put that first, you wake yourself. Second, you fuel yourself. Third, you invest in yourself. And then you asked me, wait, so where is the love yourself? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, I guess where's the love yourself? But I approach myself as a tough, loving parent, you could say. I'm making you do your homework because I love you, or else I will tell you, you don't got to do it. Or I'm telling you that we got to, go outside and run because I love you and I care for your health. Or else I would just tell you, go play your PS2 all day long. I'm fine, So that's kind of how I approach it with myself. But then I guess, is that not self-love when I'm just making myself do homework left and right and not really, or is it?
I love the statement. It's like when I read or when I see, hey, you've got to have more self-love. Like there's got to be more self-love. You got to take care of yourself. You got to do all this stuff. Okay. However, I think the self-love movement swung way too far. And I used like a WestJet analogy or an airline analogy where an individual is sitting in a seat and the flight attendant's explaining to the passengers how the oxygen masks work. And we all know, we all heard it. Like someone, said, well, if you have a dependent with you or a little WestJetter, make sure that you put your mask on first before you put it on them. Okay, got it. Right. So, but then there's no self-respecting parent in that plane who's going to try to put a mask on themselves first. So you've got this conflict. So now I present the scenario where I pause and I go, okay, everybody in the plane's going to watch you and that little WestJetter. And the oxygen mask is going to come down. I'm going to pop it on, and then I'm going to put it on my little WestJetter. And then everybody in the plane is going to go, fucking selfish. Okay, so then scenario 2 is I'm going to try to put it on the little WestJetter, and I'm going to struggle because I don't have any oxygen myself, and I'm going to be sitting around and, little WestJetter's kicking and screaming at me, and maybe I get it on 10 seconds, and I'm going, turn it blue, and I get it on myself, and I go, and then everybody in the plane goes, fucking idiot. So we have that razor where there's a sense of judgment that comes within self-love. The ideal is to go, I'll get that oxygen mask on. Self-love is like, okay, I'll get my own on, and then I'm going to sit back, let everybody else do what they do. Because I'm about self-love. I need to love myself. You guys suffer, do whatever you need to do. And then the other one, the people-pleasing one, is like, screw the mask, on goes the cape. I'm going to run around and try to get everybody's masks on myself and then die. What? So there's not one real answer in there that says, except having first the idea that you're not judgmental of the self, that you're not critical of the self. That's why I like that word friction. Because in the ideal world, you snap that mask on, you get it on the little WestJetter, you hop up, you help other people. We can't forget that part. That part is so valuable and rewarding. And if I get out in the world and I'm the shirt off my back person, then I'll probably die trying to get them well. If I just do the self-love part and I pop that mask on and I kick my feet back and I watch other people struggle, but I can rationalize it as self-love, I'm still in that judgmental space. When we're looking at how to do that, it starts with being non-judgmental of the self. That my efforts to do include both how I operate and how I operate with others. And what are those values and virtues that allow me to do that? And so I feel like when we get to that, what is the self-love? It's understanding the ingredients, right? Being the person that we want to become is understanding the ingredients that we have. And when we do that, that allows us to better operate in those spaces of, being competitive in getting the best for your nutrition, being competitive in getting, the best sleep you ever can. And not, someone says, well, you going to bed at 8:30? What are you, senior citizen?
I've been called senior citizen like 4 times a lot.
I know.
Like what?
You going to bed at 8:30? Like what? There's that shame, judge, right? And there's no apologies. Like, nope. And just loving the fact you're sliding in. I'm getting getting my 7 to 8? Is it quality? Is it quantity? Is it like, that's a person who's getting after this part first and knowing that when they're doing this well, they're doing that well in the world, right? And unapologetically and non-judgmental, which is really hard to do.
Yeah.
It's really hard to operate in that space. We're very critical of that self, right? And yet we want the best of it.
I 1,000,000% agree with that balance that is required. And it took me a very harsh moment in time to realize that I can't just show out for others and forget about myself. Or very soon enough, after I gave my shirt off my back and I gave my pants, then I gave my sock, said, nah, then you're left with nothing and you die very quickly. And then I'm like, okay, well then how will I be able to love the people in the longest run possible if I am no longer there to be able to assist them? So then that's where that selfish love is required. And I was like, okay, Séb, you need to step out, invest in yourself, make sure that you prioritize yourself so that not you're prioritizing yourself so that you can just, forget about everyone. No, prioritize yourself. You can maximize the value and the self that you can bring other people and everyone around you. I think that's balance is what is necessary to be able to be the most effective in loving others is by, they say, loving yourself. That's where it is. But then it is a very fun line to jump around to be like, okay, this for myself because I'm trying to avoid others. Where am I? Where's the conversation? What is the real line I'm really on?
I think you just nailed down that friction where you called it a line just then. And when you feel like you're jumping back and forth in it, I feel like that's the friction of self and others. That's where, like I could layer this as like in personality, where a person, we grow up as children and we're just acting in the world. Like we're nowhere else, right? We're as the most present as wherever we're going to be. And then we become sort of this agentic self where we figure out that we're competent and good at some things. And those are the things that we tend to gravitate to, where we might, dissolve sort of pathways that aren't interesting or that we aren't getting the social status, or we're not feeling as good as others, which we can talk about comparison in a minute. But where that, as soon as that comes online, like 12, 13, 14, 15 years of age, we're not having the conversations that allow those people to understand the self. We're having conversations with them that immediately have them making life decisions about whether or not they're supposed to be a scientist or a doctor or a carpenter or a professional athlete. We're trying to tell them all these things about what they want to do, what they want to do, what they want to do, and we get the arrow going the wrong way. We should be having and narrating stories that help those people say who you want to be, right? Comparison's a very natural process to understanding whether being socialized in certain ways or not are going to be important to us. And where we're stuck, or where we're getting stuck, is that we tend to trip on comparison and then lock in and make decisions about ourselves based on comparison. So almost like there's this emotional trauma that had people go, okay, well, 14, 15, 16, I'm making life decisions, right? I'm not in band anymore. I'm not a musician. I am a musician. No, you play instruments. That's not like I'm an athlete. Okay. You're athletic. Got it. Okay. You're still you, right? No 14-year-olds walking up to me and saying, hi, I'm basketball. Right. But I got a whole lot of kids. It was like, ball is life. No, your life, and ball is something you do with it. But we're almost like, I don't know, it's like, I'm going to say harvesting an identity, but like mailing it in. I mean, there's theories in terminology is no fun because nobody wants to jump into that stuff. But the idea that we just sort of like give up on this identity because I'm not that, or start telling ourselves we are that, and then we compare ourselves to others in that, and then we get stuck on comparison. And then, I hate to say this, but sports probably the worst violator for this. They mask that as compete, and it's not. It's compare. And we do this in ranking things and ranking people. You're the best in this class. You're the first chair in that. You're the soloist in this choir. You're the starting this second team, backing up. Like, we're doing all these things to rank, and then we're all pissed off because people are stuck on comparison. Well, they spent 7 years being immersed in comparison in junior high and high school, and then boop, get out to the world.
So then how would we go about solving that, or how would we go about approaching the sports to be able to still have that competing aspect of it, but also growing it in a healthy manner?
Well, you just said the word. Like, there's growth mindsets are very much what people are talking about in that domain, but we're not having conversations about who this person can be, right? It's what this person can do. And so this 14-year-old is, what can you do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? We're just jamming it down their throats instead of who do you want to be? And how do you want to be that way? That's the other line of that self. That's the other line of, like, what are my ingredients that I bring to this space, to math class, to social class, to gym class, to 4-H, to club soccer, to whatever, right? But they start to see themselves as so much more than whatever it is they're going to do in that space. And as soon as that person gets traction on those ingredients, they realize that they are not what they're doing. They are so much more than that. And then there's going to be a lot, I'm going to say there's a lot less friction. There's very much going to be friction through that journey. But you said it really well. You're like, you're bouncing between self and others, where we just do comparison. We're not bouncing between it. Like, when we jump into it like that, like, that's where you're saying, like, I know I have the potential to be this person. And when we do the inner work of, like, how did the person you are today, how was it constructed? And that's kind of the third step in personality development, where you become the author of your story. You look back, you pull on the threads of your past to bring them to your present, not from a scary perspective, but a very valuable perspective.
So it would be more, the aim is to make a life and create it by your potential, and strive for who you can be. So very much bring it back to the present, focus on what you're doing today, and line up all the necessary components that you find are valuable, and just focus on the day-to-day. And that's what's going to create the potential, instead of just always comparing.
Well, and I'd even take one more step. Like, when we hear the word potential, and my upbringing, potential was used as a way of shaming without people really knowing. They thought they were encouraging, but what they were doing is, Matthew's just not working to his potential.
Yeah, 100%.
Matthew's not reaching his potential. He's got to stop doing this if he's going to hit on his potential. So all the things I was doing showed me that I am underperforming.
100%. Yeah, because I think like one of the main, and like, sorry to cut you off, but that is one thing that keeps playing in my head. And I don't know, I think it was David Goggins that said it. He said that his biggest fear, and I guess that also makes it my biggest fear, is when I die, God's gonna sit there and show me a whole montage of some person, or is going to show me this person and be like, look at this. And I'm going to sit there and be like, who is this? I don't know who the heck this is. Like, this is who you could have been if you did everything that you were meant to do. And that's where I'm like, I do not want to finish life and look back and regret because I know that I wasted my potential by wasting time, by not being disciplined. But doing that, I also know very much so has sucked away a lot of the joy out of pursuing it, constantly in this chase after myself instead of just enjoying the marathon.
Mm-hmm. What would be an example that you're thinking about when you say that, where you felt guilty that you weren't getting at something or getting after it, and what would typically in the sport world be called the grind mentality, or masked as mental toughness or grit, just because I like that word, I'm going to stick it in there. But like, what's an example you can think of where you were actually disappointed in the self for not doing something, not getting at that, or I should have eaten better here, or I should have rested more there, or I shouldn't have done this, like all that wonderful should and guilt-filled language that almost catalyzes an inner frustration or anger that will try to make some rigid rule later on about I'm never doing that again. Like, what's one of those examples that rattles around for you?
I think for me, it's broken down into two pieces. To keep it very simple to begin with, the one is there is a lot of goals that I'm aiming for. Until those goals are met, I cannot rest. Being myself, I haven't yet earned the chance to just be able to be in the moment.
I'm still striving for things.
Accolades. And then number two is the battle between who I am versus my perception. I am healthy, so why am I having this meal? I shouldn't be having a nice fun meal that has bits of fried chicken. I should not have that because I am healthy. I should not be going out bowling with my friends because I haven't worked out today.
But I claim to be an athlete.
So there is that standard of you cannot enjoy these moments if all your homework has not been completed. So what the hell, Séb?
That's the tough love.
I think there's those two pieces that take away from the enjoyment of the process because there is such standards to be met and goals to be achieved. I'm not sure if it's right or wrong just yet, but this is the constant friction that I get.
I'm just thinking this is how this is playing out in my mind a little bit. And I play with language intentionally to help people frame or reframe things in different ways that we haven't seen before. If I'm hearing you right, there's that inner battle that no one else would know is going on except you or those that you share it with, where you can't do this if you don't do this first, right? So if we kind of zoom out and look at a bigger picture here, I changed the word selfish a little bit. What we mean by selfish is actually self-absorbed. Because when I take the word selfish and I look at it on the 0 to +1 side of things, right, the positive, if we say, hey, Séb, I'll meet you for dinner. At what time you could be there? And you go, I'll be there 8-ish. What's implied by that?
It's whenever I get my stuff done.
Yeah, so like somewhere in and around there. I'll get there at around 8, and Séb will be there around 8-ish. So like 10 after, it might be 5 after Tuesday, whatever. Okay. Yet there's no air around the self. There's no ish.
Yes.
And if we reframe or frame this journey, this inner journey around the self, as something where I can actually look at it as being an ish, so that it's not a hard line, there's some bandwidth in there. And the bandwidth for the physical self, the bandwidth for the emotional self, the bandwidth for the social self, and the bandwidth for the psychological self, now we have a lot of room to move when it comes to being self-ish, right? We have some space in there. So where self-absorbed would be, I only do things for me. I'm not going to do anything for anybody. And a wonderful, social media catchphrase in the past 18 months has been, if you're like that, then you're a narcissist, which is exceptionally different. So for those of you that throw that word around trying to get clickbait, please stop it. Just because someone doesn't agree with you does not make them a narcissist. A preference is not narcissistic. I just really need to, there's disclaimers. Narcissistic personality disorder is very troubling and very difficult diagnosis to work through. Just to differentiate that. So selfish would be, I'm trying to figure out how much of my psychological self that I'm working on today within the bounds of what I'm doing. And so I'm getting to know and understand that for myself, right? So that you may not achieve the hard goal where someone says, I've got to get up and I've got to journal for 45 minutes. I'm going to do 15 minutes of meditation. I'm going to make my breakfast. I have 30 minutes to do this. And they call it time management. And I think time management is one of the worst oxymorons on the face of the earth, right? You can't control time. You can't get more of it. You can't give any away. It never changes, right? So therefore, why are we trying to focus on whether we can manage it or not? We're not doing a good job of managing the self. We should be talking about self-management within the time. That's mindful practice. I'm going to get up and I'm going to meditate. What time do you get up? Well, I get up at 6. How come 6? Well, because the night before flows on from my bed at 8:30, and now I know I get this amount of sleep. Quality sleep. It's not just some arbitrary number of like, man, I was watching this Kobe Bryant video, and he said, you get up, you got to have the Mamba mentality, you get up at midnight because no one else is training at midnight.
And I got 4 extra hours on you.
And if I multiply that over 17 years, yeah. So let's flash forward when we've induced early onset dementia because of the sleep issues that you had for 40 years. But that feature, and I'm not taking dementia, but sleep is like that thing we need. That thing, you can't do it with less.
Yes.
And people go all the time, they're like, oh, yeah, fluff up. Yeah, I can.
You'll see when I'm dead.
Yeah. I was up midnight to 3, I was training. When we look at that ish part, right? I am hitting on what I need to do that's better for the self in the time that I'm giving it. If I have 30 seconds to meditate, it's not enough because I've assigned time to it, not me. And when we assign self to it, self-management is that ebb and flow between what I need and what I need to do in the world. There's always going to be friction, but that friction can be significantly reduced when we have a better sense of self that's ebbing and flowing in the demands that you've placed on yourself in the day. It helps to change the perception, the socialized perception of balance, right? Like, I don't know why we're weighing things for some reason. It's about, work life. Why is gainful employment that brings you joy and love and happiness not a part of life? I'm very much me in my work. And that's where I want to encourage people to, if you're unlocking something about the self, it's getting to know the self and appreciate the self. What are the ingredients of the self? Which self am I speaking to? The social self, the emotional self, the psychological self, right? The physical self, right? So many young males grew up, looking, okay, you've got to, I got to have 6-pack chiseled abs. You got to have a cutout jawbone. You got to have broad shoulders. You got to be, and by the way, it all stands under the banner of masculine, which coincidentally is not physical, but that's right? Lick, stick, that's what I am, right? And, as someone who's 6'6" and doesn't play basketball, gets height shamed all the time, right? So I say, you must play basketball. No. Oh, what a waste of height. Why is that an opinion? Why do you get to say that? Oh, I wish I was your height. I would be dunking. That person's like a world-class musician, right? You should have done basketball. Why? What the hell? That's just what you would have done, right? So when we're investing in this self, there's lots of work to be done within the person to know and split out that who gave me the word potential, and is it mine? How much of that potential is related to me versus something socially subscribed to? And are those criteria, those values, those virtues, those qualities, those characteristics, whatever we're calling them, are those the criteria that I'm striving for and using in a day? So that I'm less rigid in, like you said, like I loved what you said to dial in on food, right? Like, oh, I should be I'm going to guilt the shit out of myself all the way through the day to make sure that I reward myself at the end of the day by having achieved a goal. No, I just achieved relieving guilt. But when you talk about discipline being yours, like truly disciplined within the self, it's a quality about you love, then that is a part of discipline, not a part of guilt.
Right. I like that. Yeah. Because, I feel like there's like finding that balance is once I'll be able to personally be able to flow through the actions that I must do. Because, or else there is very much always an aspect of guilt that underlies every action.
Yeah.
It's like you said, there is that grind. No matter what, I need to grind until I reach this.
Yeah.
But until I've reached it, the grind is not fun.
Yeah.
And there's all these things that I'm expecting myself to do, and it's never really ending. And then you expect to have fun. But when I do have fun, it's not fun because I haven't yet earned the right to have fun since I haven't yet done all the hard work and the necessary actions to have reached those goals. Yeah. And I guess there's also the flip side to it, because I know that that's how I am, but I know there's other people that are on the other extreme where it's, my guy, tomorrow's not promised. Max out today.
So do your thing.
You know? So it's, I guess, to simplify it, how does one find the balance between striving to live for a long time or striving to live for a good time? Because I feel like even if you're striving to live for a long time, you're probably not going to live that long because mentally you've beaten yourself to the pulp. And if you strive to live for a good time, you're also probably not going to live that long because, hey, I know there's a lot of things that are good times, but you might not see tomorrow because of how good it was, you know? So being able to find that balance that will not only give you longevity, but make it worthwhile and valuable. You're not looking back like that was worth throughout my whole life.
What's the point?
I never really got a chance to enjoy it.
And so the joy, like, let's click on that, because when you're talking about I'm doing the things that I because of the grind, because of what I believe the mental effort is to get this done so I can achieve that upper goal or that upper expectation. And then there's a sense where it isn't as much fun as I could be having, and I'm comparing it to something else.
Well, yeah, that part isn't as much fun because I'm yet to achieve it. And then also just having fun with friends doesn't feel fun because I have not yet earned it.
Right. So then that would be viewed as a reward once you've done all that other work.
And if the goals feel like they're never going to be reached, where does that leave me? God.
Yeah. Standing in a closet by myself, grinding after goals, lonely as hell, depressed, but man, I'll achieve something.
I literally, it's weird because I'll feel guilty for not having fun and I just tell myself, it's okay, I'm just here to make sure everybody else is having fun.
Yeah.
If everybody else is having fun, I'm okay with living with that. And I go back to my grind, but I have not yet earned the issue to have fun personally and truly enjoy it.
Let's take that and said how. So let's look for something concrete. Number one thing that I encourage people to do is, and this is what I do obviously as a profession, but I do it personally. I've been doing it since I was, very, very young, is like, you've got to do that deep inner work for the same reasons you're doing the deep outer work. And if I go and I watch, food prep, for instance, is a really good example. So there's a lot of pride in food prep when you're a performance athlete, or like you're bodybuilding, or you're really into your craft. And this supplemental activity allows you a sense of pride. Now, if that in the here and now, I'm standing and I'm prepping food and I'm going through, whatever, 7 days, 10 days, 4 meals, all 55 different pieces of Tupperware. And I'm standing there and I'm going, oh, this sucks. Like, it's such a time robber. I'm then talking about things in my head like sacrifices. Right? I'm losing time here because I'm doing this. I'm not present in that moment. I'm not finding joy. I'm not leaning into the pride. I take a picture of it and throw it on Instagram to let everybody know that I'm grinding. But the deep inner work is, this takes 95 minutes or 100 minutes on a Sunday. And I'm thinking about how, I could be over with my friends who said, hey, we're going for a walk, or we're going to the baseball game. Hey, we're going to listen to music. Our friend so-and-so is doing a solo guitar act at the coffee shop. And I'm like, no, I'm grinding. And that person, whether they know or they've just held something out there, right, for everybody to know, are they feeling the pride and the joy and going through that process and knowing that this is valuable and helpful and it's a part of themselves? Or are they weighing it against all those other things and telling themselves it's worth a sacrifice? So saying I'm losing something in order to get this. That pathway is a pathway to failure. That pathway is a person who's not doing the deep inner work and for themselves and integrating that activity within themselves. That's a discipline thing. I love discipline. Discipline is me, not it. I don't show everybody all 25 ways I'm disciplined and go, yeah, see, I'm disciplined. I internalize discipline. Someone says self-discipline, and they're standing there gritting teeth about how they're losing and sacrificing because they're winning in here. That's not self-discipline.
I definitely connect with a piece of, you may not have pride or joy in what you're doing because you're so focused on just the action and not it being for yourself, in a sense.
Yeah.
And I'm always proud of myself when I do complete the day where I hit the 100 tasks that I had set for my day.
Yeah.
Which happens once every like 6 years. But I do oftentimes find that there is dissatisfaction in a lot of the actions because of, again, I guess it's just what is expected. So even if I finish 95% of the tasks, there's those 3 tasks that have not been done and that I've postponed. Could be the small things. As soon as I see that I put a red X on one of them and not a check mark, that's where it goes. Well, the day is gone, man. And it's almost, again, instead of enjoying and congratulating the tasks that have been done, but it's more of a, you have completed it. We live to see another day.
Right. Relief.
Exactly. So, and that can be held up, but that's how I grew up with it. And that's the piece I'm seeing that is necessary to shift, or else you're prone to burning out because you're never doing enough. And I try to view it as, I've put in the aspect, that's the only way I can get things done, is I always tell myself, I'm not doing it for me.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for,
Yeah.
forget who you are right now, do it for him because he'll thank you later. I do view it as a relationship, almost like I am the employee and I am the boss. However, I have the worst relationship with my boss because no matter what I do, I could be scrubbing the floors day and night.
Yeah.
And my boss is still saying, you got it done. Good, I'll see you tomorrow. Or, man, that wasn't enough. You forgot that spot at the end.
Yeah.
So why the hell would I want to show up to work the next day? You know? But that's how it is. So I tell myself, okay, I need to learn how to better my relationship with him so that I can do this in a long time. And not only that, but look forward to show up to work the next day because I'm growing this company for myself. Right now, the employee is getting beaten down.
Yeah. Well, look at it. And so let's drill deep then, because Simon Sinek sort of coined the terms like, find your why, know your why, all this stuff. And if I have an answer to that, you find a purpose. Your purpose is rarely, if ever, going to be something external. And that's why I always caution people to look for perceptions of success or failure based on comparison rather than on compete. When you're competing, you're looking to have a full understanding of your skills and abilities in that moment, and that you're going to put those skills, those abilities, into play with others, not against them. When we go against something, we're more comparative. If we're comparative, then we're guilt-driven, we're ego-protective, we're not confident, or we feign confidence, right? But that we're still glancing over at the other opponent and thinking, is he better than me? And in this battle right here, I lose it, he's better than me. And then I lose it, he's better than me. And I win it. Oh, phew. It's not I'm better than him. It's relief. Now imagine you're standing in front of a mirror. There's where I'm not enough to get done what I needed to do. The compete is a full understanding and inventory of what one's skills are in order to take them to the world and be confident in who you are. So when you're talking about that boss-employee relationship, you've got a comparison because of whatever's going on from before. But that comparison is like, I'm striving to be that boss, but I've never seen that boss do this work. I've never seen that boss clean the floors. I've never seen that boss stay up till midnight. I've never seen that boss. That's where comparison kills us. Because I'm assuming, or I've constructed an identity that suggests and believes something will be better once I get to that, even though I've never seen that do any of this. And then we dismiss or undervalue this, what I'm doing in the here and now. And that is the death of comparison, is that we're almost always wrong. And I say that with conviction, that we're almost always wrong, because perception is very much a socialized ingredient list, right? It's very much a socialized ingredient list. You got to look this way. You got to be this smart. You've got to make sure you have the right emotions, but not too many emotions. And depending on if you're a female in the world, then, well, you're allowed some emotions, but then you get tagged with neuroticism. And if you got any emotions as a man, then you're tagged as weak or some other misogynistic term that flies around. So let's just make sure we weave that into the perception of this boss that we have in our lives. And we'll have all this settled sense of being once we get there. But we're never enough.
Mm-hmm. So,
and we've never seen that boss do the work.
100%. So now that idea, I totally understand it. However, implying or implicating it within the day-to-day, how would one go about in the actions?
Take that one more step, right? Why does someone need 7 to 9 hours of sleep?
Just to be able to have a clear mind throughout the day, let's say.
Right. So clear mind throughout the day. The majority of humans, this is an inarguable fact. Like science is just like, because your brain needs it, your body needs it, what you need. That's why they land on 8. So the idea that that's okay, you need 8 hours, like 7 to 9. Kids need 10, senior citizens need a little bit less, whatever. What doesn't matter. Then you've got a study of 1. You've got n equals 1 who goes, what is the sleep I need? Instead of striving just, okay, you've got to get 8 hours of sleep. Okay, so I've got to be in bed by 8:30 every night. Like now I'm stressing about getting, and then I'm putting effort and trying to sleep. Like that's the number 1 ingredient to insomnia. Because I haven't internalized the value yet. I haven't known what it is that I feel when I wake from 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And once people do that understanding, once they do that work, they don't get up and flash back into whatever perception of that boss is. They're closing the gap to that boss in person. There's no more mirror or compare. There's compete. I value 7 to 9 hours of, because this is the internal feeling that I get, that I operate with. My concentration levels are better. My thinking patterns are better. My decision making is clearer. I make less impulsive decisions. I'm more patient with those that I love and more empathic to those I don't know. And all of these now become the criteria to meet that. Instead of check the box, fucking nailed it, man, out. How'd you do? Slept 7 and 9? I don't need that from someone if I've got all those other criteria.
So it turns into a lot more of a value-based task instead of a checklist-based task. And also to add to it, I guess, would be understanding that it is a part of your core values.
Yes.
Instead of a mere perception that you give yourself of an action that you're doing. Yeah. Just because I can tell that, hey, I slept 8 hours today. I got my workout in. I read my 10 pages, but it's more of a, oh no, it is a part of my identity. And for it to be part of identity, you need to have core values attributed or attached to each action.
Very much. Very much. And that's the part, Séb, I think that is oftentimes messy for people because it feels soft and intangible. And we throw words around all the time. And someone says like, oh, what are your core values? Curiosity and playfulness. And then people go, what? Yeah, those are that's my foundation, curiosity and playfulness. And I was shamed out of curiosity as a kid. And I had to work hard to figure out how to bring it back and operationalize it on a day-to-day basis as an adult. That's not hey, I got up on Wednesday and figured it out, right? And playfulness, right? I don't mean like, hey, what are you doing at the park? Like, I'd love to go to the park, but that's why I had kids. So now I can go to the park because it looks really weird if a 45-year-old man's at the park by himself. So,
please let me push you on the swing. I know you don't know me, but it's okay. It's only going to be for the next 10 minutes and I'll leave.
Yeah. And then, woo! All right, good. Right. Police have arrived. I don't know. He's weird and he's trying to push everybody on the swing. So, but like playfulness in what you do. If I get up in the morning and I decide I'm going to go for a 20-minute walk and I'm not going to listen to a podcast. No podcast. Okay, no podcast. Why? Why wouldn't you listen to podcasts? This is great quality time. Oh, man, I've always got to be grinding for knowledge. Got to put a podcast in. That little argument there, playfulness is, I'm going to watch how my puppy operates in the world. And I'm going to be really present with him and knowing and seeing that this is the best time in his life and his day. And it is now the best in mine too. Not for the rest of the day, not all day, not all those things. But I'm being taught how to be mindful in a moment. And I'm watching how he playfully moves throughout his walk, just being drawn by whatever happens to be next in scent. And if I'm playful like that in my life, the stress, right? What am I stressing about? What am I stressing about? Oh, I've got to get this done. I have to get this done. I have to get this done. Can I do this in a playful way? It will never be a have to again.
Now,
and that is go ahead.
Sorry. And now, being able to be mindful with each task, your day to day, in your actions, being present, do you believe that comes with repetition?
Yep.
Then finally be able to be in the moment? Yep. Or like, is it just a switch that someone can make? Because for me, I can tell myself that I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to just look around, enjoy the nature, and maybe I'll be able to be a little like just mindful and be in the present. But then I know that also very much so that by the end of the day, again, I missed something in my day. And I'm like, I knew I should have listened to that podcast when I was, walking instead of just being, I mean, I enjoyed the moment, but now I regret it because does that come with, do you just need to keep telling yourself, no, I'm not allowed to think like that? Or do you just need to put it into practice and through repetition?
A very, very much a deep repetition and practiced skill. We're not good in being present in the Western world. We're awful at it, right? Even the term grind, like you got to grind. You're right out of the moment. You just left it. See ya. Like, because now you're anxious that you're not. And so you're being chased by something constantly that's going to push you instead of pulled mindfully towards what you really value. Like, there's not one person I've ever met who's like, hey, I love being shoved in the back towards something that eventually someone's going to tell me is a valuable end goal. Like, you shove me in the back, you're getting that abrasive guy turning right back around and saying, yeah. And then someone says, you just got to be pushed. Nope. That's someone who has not been taught or has not been sat with and present to say, hey, what are you pulled towards? What is it within you that you have that you can use as a resource, as infrastructure to step closer to what it is that you want? When we have to be violently shoved, we tend to be abrasive, right?
How do you make fun with the things? And when I say fun, I mean present and mindful and enjoy the moment with the things that are underlined as disciplinary and hard. Like for me personally, yesterday, I wanted to watch an episode, but then I was like, no, but I didn't get to finish the segment of the podcast that I said I was going to finish. Usually when I eat, I like to just watch an episode and then go right back into work. But I'm not going to have enough time because I need to go to sleep right after. But then I said, okay, what would I thank myself for later? I'll watch the podcast. But how do you connect the mindfulness, being in the moment, with having driven tasks that you know are important to follow? Because I know naturally, us humans, we are going to go with the path that it has the least friction, the least
resistance,
distance, the one that makes us feel the best in the moment. But that's not always the best thing.
I would say that when a person's is at that impasse that they're comparing, like what's the best thing? Like I liked your question, that critical question of what will I thank myself for later? That is gratitude. So if I'm going to tell myself that I'm going to thank myself for this later, then I'm going to pull myself towards gratitude and say, what is it that I'm grateful for right now? And as a result, you're going to be more empathic towards yourself, less judgmental, and you're going to experience more conviction for the value that you're actually grateful for there. That's a step deeper. So I'm grateful for the availability of an episode, and I'm grateful for, being present here. I'll thank myself later for the calm that my episode brought me, the presence that my meal brought me, and how I prepared that. And I'm not going to judge myself against the or. Because if I unplug anxiety from that, that's just good critical thought. Right? And now instead of it being an or, it can be an and just not right now. Like you say, like the being mindful, but then having these life goals. Right?
Literally the only way I operate. I always fast forward and be like, which one am I going to regret less?
Yeah.
This episode, I can watch it later. But that segment of the pod, I value a lot more because I know it'll bring me even more information that I can even carry on to this conversation today.
Yeah.
I'm going to regret much less watching the pod than having a little bit of enjoyment moment before I go to sleep.
Yeah. Well, and if there's no judgment in that, there's no, and then I think that's where people get hung up, right? Then it slides from a motivational perspective. It slides over from a can and a will, which is very internalized forms of motivation, to a should or a have to, which is very external or guilt-driven motivation.
Okay.
And so when we're tasking ourselves with being non-judgmental, right, within ourselves, being non-judgmental and saying, that's an and, this is what I want for more because of these reasons, great. So it's not I sacrifice that. That's why I don't like that language. I don't like the language. That language puts us in places where we're now trying to achieve some sort of weird mental balance, where if you have what conviction do I have for my own core belief, and I'm making a decision based on that, I won't be judgmental to letting the other one go. Like I'll use an example, and I've done this with tons and tons and tons of parents and people around, but I've had to work my butt off to do this with my own children. So my kids will have a huge mess, and they're 9 and 6-year-old boys. So they'll unpack everything in the room. Just all the drawers are empty, all the Lego bins are dumped out, everything sits there, pushed, cushions are everywhere. And you walk upstairs, you're like, this is a dump. And then I can hold that for a second, like, dump. And I could just stop for a second and go, this is a really well played in room. There are 25 stories in here of adventures that they had, of lines that they pulled on, narratives that they told themselves, friendship experiences in here. And if I walk in there and go, this is a dump, I take all that and just run. It's the same room, but I walk in and go, tell me what was going on here. Tell me what you guys were thinking here. Why are all the guns out? And it's not from a place of contempt. It's from a place of, you have 16 hands? I didn't know you had 16 hands. Dad, I don't have 16 hands. Well, you have 16 guns. I got it. This is amazing. Well, no, I was using this one and this one and this one, and then I put this one down and I put this one up and I picked this. It's like, I have the same room and I can approach it with contempt. I can approach it with playfulness and curiosity. I can approach it with what lines up closer to me is playfulness and curiosity, because those are my core beliefs. Right? If my core belief was a clean room, we've got to talk because we haven't done enough deep digging in the why if your core belief is a clean room. That's not a core belief.
Well,
Clean isn't even a core belief.
I mean, clean was definitely a core belief that was shoved down my throat. Because for me, I was definitely oh my God, so there's Legos on the wall, there's Play-Dohs on the floor, and it's putting all over my face. And hey, I was the messiest kid ever. Oh my gosh. But so then let's say for you, even though, yes, you have that curiosity and you want to like be able to still attach that moment with positivity, but then also have the core belief that it is important to then set up for the next fun extravaganza moment you're going to have with your friends.
Yep.
How do you implicate that when it is not something that either one comes naturally to them or something that they don't want to personally do?
So take the experience that's there and go, are they going to take more responsibility for their mess through a lens of contempt or through a lens of playfulness and curiosity? If I want them to form the belief of responsibility, I can force them to do it, or I can playfully move them to understand it. Which are you more likely to internalize a sense of responsibility?
The latter.
So when we talk about we talk about self-responsibility, right? Is it yours or is it other responsibility? It's theirs and they're telling me how this is done. Okay. I will then almost always be dependent on that force to make me do something that has to do with responsibility. Remove that force. How do I know I have it? And I'm going to learn through failure long before I'll learn through success.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead, if I'm teaching the other way, if I'm talking the other way, and I'm continuing to give the message of responsibility, and I'm not telling anymore, then I'm asking. And if I'm asking, then I'm moving them to recognize when they're doing it rather than when they're not. And I'm only asking questions like, whose responsibility is this? Is this your space? Oh, yes. Do we take responsibility first? Yes. Okay. And when we see them doing it without the reminders, very scaffolding in coaching too, right? We see them, it's like, well, hang on. This is one clean room. It's not about the room. You want that little person or that person to go, yeah, I'm taking responsibility for my space. Once they say that, they have it. And they don't need you.
It's bringing it back to, again, identifying oneself with the things that you do and not having it attached on the checklist just because, well, my dad said we have to. No, it's more, hey, okay, I'm a responsible person for my room. I cherish this space. So this is who I am. And I value these actions by cleaning it. And I understand why I'm doing it and not just shoved down my throat because that's how it is.
Yeah, that's how it is. Yeah. Yeah, that's and that in the short term, the contempt will work. Right? We're still seeing this all the time in sports, right? That contempt will work, but it doesn't allow the person to own what it is that we're disappointed with in the first place. So instead, it allows the person to start to own and make it theirs, make that quality theirs, and understand how to execute it. That's the how. That's the unlock for, I think, a lot of people when they do that inner work, right? I said earlier that curiosity, like I asked a million questions when I was little, so people stopped telling me things. And as a result, I just, okay, well, I guess I probably shouldn't. I found things out in my family and in my life 20 years later. And so how come no one ever told me? Well, because you would not stop asking questions. Oh, so that was a bad thing? Yeah. But here I am in this career field, which is almost exclusively about asking questions. Here's the science of figuring out how does psychology work? And it's very much about scientific method, very much about your your line of question. It's very much about articulating yourself. So a very much a part of how I was for a long time, but wasn't given the air to be so. It was a problem, right? You're distracted, you're disruptive, you're not focused, you're doing these things. Like if you don't pull on those threads in life, what was a great thing was being suppressed. And what was not a great thing was being handled with contempt and shame. Well, of course, you're going to have some layers to figure out. But if you don't do that inner work, the why is always outside of your control. That's where that friction is just going to continue to either be more friction, right? Or always friction.
Lean deeper into that if we can. Someone that is sitting with themselves after having been dealt the hand that they have, constantly feeling high amounts of friction on their day-to-day as soon as they wake up. I'm going to say a little disclaimer because it almost can sound like an attack, but I can say that it has become very trendy, you could say, to say that I have ADHD or I am depressed or I am anxious. And it's easy now for people to just categorize themselves in one of those and then just come to acceptance with it. And then when it comes out putting in the work, now since you've accepted it, you just say, hey, that's just how I am. Would you say that there's a difference between someone that is mentally ill versus someone that doesn't have the necessary brain health developed to be able to optimize through their day?
Delicately handling the difference between a clinical diagnosis and what someone concludes for themselves is very different. Having a clinician who's working with you to understand and appreciate a diagnosis versus like finding the entrepreneur and whoever's on TikTok having read 6 criteria from a website and says, do you have these things? Then you have this. Like, right? Okay, great. Like that's not the best way to come about things. But it is a good way for someone to draw attention to what they see in themselves. The downside of that is that it's a deficit in character instead of a part of who they are.
Okay.
It's not what they are. And like you said, like someone says, I am anxious. No, you're not. You have anxiety. You're you. And anxiety is pervasive in life. We saw a massive uptick in it during COVID, right? And where people are saying I'm anxious, 100% of people have anxiety. If I'm operating by anxiety being the problem, then what I'm hearing you say is that sexiness of being able to say, well, I have anxiety, so I can't do or not do or don't do this. Well, that is someone who sees themselves as the problem instead of seeing anxiety as a symptom and understanding and going and working with a trained clinician who will help them understand and reflect on what that anxiety is for them, how to understand the nuances of it, where it seems to be more pervasive in other areas, why it's come up now louder than maybe other times. Like that's therapy.
So
and yet,
would you say that the same way that you can work your body and grow into like, I guess, a sedentary lifestyle, you could almost atrophy also your brain health if you don't do the correct work to better yourself or do that inner work, which then leads to people I don't want to say believing because it sounds bad, but believing that I'm depressed, I'm an anxious person, like labeling themselves with, oh, I have ADHD because I can't focus. Wait, do I have ADHD because I can't focus? Or is it because I've adopted so many bad habits that now my brain is atrophied in the subject of focus?
Yeah, that one. My challenge, and we hear this all the time in practice, is someone comes in and goes, yeah, I was watching a TikTok video or I saw this thing on YouTube or whatever. And ADHD is the sexy one these days. Autism was the one that was kind of flying around in 16, 17, and 18. And narcissism is kind of trying to catch up lately. And, I'm a dissatisfied person, and therefore that person has narcissism. So when we're talking about something like ADHD, and I've only had one person since I started doing this take me up on the challenge. And I said, the two criteria I'm interested when someone's trying to self-diagnose and they say, I just don't need that. I already know I have it. Is okay. So did you have it growing up? No, I don't think I did. Then you do not have ADHD. The tagline to that is like, well, it could be undiagnosed. Have you done the inner work from then to differentiate between what it might have been as far as ADHD or ADD? Was it anxiety? Were there separation challenges with parents? Were there disruptions in family? Were there, like, those are the more likely precursors to what it is. And then the second thing is I'll say, put your phone away for a week. And I don't know, I can't do that. It's like, okay, so if I take 20 years ago you and today you, and you're taking in 15,000 times more information in a flurry than you were 20 years ago you. And you're expecting that when you turn that off, then the next 10 seconds, you should just be able to concentrate. And it's like, have you done any deep focus work? Like really, really deep mindful concentration training, like anything like that? Well, no, I'm done. Because you're taking in 15,000 times more information. You're moving faster in life. You're expecting something for your brain you didn't even have a baseline for a while ago. And yet we're concluding you have something that is from a long time ago would have been pervasive throughout your life. When you hold that for a second and they, they sit with it, they go, okay, I don't know. All right. And even if you did decide, yeah, I already know. Okay. If so, then what? And that's where working with a clinician, that's where having supports, that's where, okay, so I have this label. It's not a conclusion. It's not a finish line. It's not a death. Like, no, it's a space to stop at and go, okay, if so, then what? And there's got to be a plan. Right? That's why I think there's a lot of frustration with medication, is that someone feels like, oh, I feel better, I can concentrate better. Most people, if you give them Adderall, will be like, holy man, I can concentrate. Whoa, I'm so productive. This is amazing. Well, you're on a stimulant.
I thought about it, but I'm too scared.
Like someone goes, this is the most productive 12 hours I've ever had in my life. You're high. Like that. So it's going to work for non-responders or for undiagnosed populations too. There's still going to be a responder because they don't know how it works.
But basically saying, oh my God, I'm so awake after having a cup of coffee. You've never tried sleeping for more than 6 hours. This is what I mean.
Yeah. No, I got to be able to go. I came from that generation. Like at 2 a.m., I'm still sitting in the office or in the like still writing. Like, okay, I can do this. I'm up at 5. I got a coach, right? I'm backing up. I'm going to work, and I'm doing this. And I'm telling myself how mentally tough I am. And then I read one book, quality book on sleep, and I go, every page has this sense of shame on it. Wow, I'm not a smart human. Someone goes, well, you know all this stuff. Yeah, but I didn't in like 1998.
Yeah.
Or 2000 or 2004 or 2007 or 2009. Right? So now I'm not going to get it back. But I'm going to integrate it into here and now. It doesn't serve me to shame myself from the past. It serves me to story that differently. So I'm making a different decision in the present, as well as the imagined future. That's that inner work. That's where that person's doing the work, the self-ish, right? Right? looking around and trying to figure out the bandwidth of what that psychological self is, what that emotional self is, as opposed to whatever socialized version of it that came in the door, or whatever story we've told ourselves from that socialized version in the past and made it ours. But in reality, it wasn't our story. And I think that's a cool journey. You and I started talking about this at the start of the podcast, but like that's a cool journey that people can get on. And there's no problem in it. That's why I love taking down stigma, right? There's no problem in that. I don't care if a person comes into the doors. I've been depressed for 7 months. Okay. Depression is a weight. A clinical depression is so heavy and so pervasive and so deep within the self. It is still not them.
Mm-hmm.
But how many people, I mean, I think the stats are like 1 in 3 people will go through a major depressive episode, more than one major depressive episode in their lives. But the idea that you have someone who goes and says, like, I am depressed, that is becoming who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how pervasive depression is.
You're turning into a self-prophecy.
Yeah. They still hold a different identity. It's just no one's seeing it, or they're storying it because the world is telling them, people don't want to be around me, or even though people are trying to be around them and they're still trying to push them away and then telling themselves people don't want to be around me. And like, that's how, like I said, like it just moves. It's like the shell game. So when you're talking about that, even at the deepest levels of clinical depression, there's still the idea that this person has a discrepant thought for who they want to be. Otherwise, they wouldn't recognize depression. They would just see it.
So is the first step to not allow yourself to label what you are? Because for me, that's how I am.
Mm-hmm.
I tell myself, as much as everyone's like, man, you probably have ADHD because you're this and that. And I'm like, I will not label myself with it, because then I have that, because then I come to acceptance. And then when I come to acceptance, that means I give up to myself in a sense and say, okay, that's just how I am. I need to accept it. And I'm not going to work towards bettering it.
Yeah.
Versus accepting that that's how it is, but then to be able to build up it. So one is denial and push and grinding out of it, and the other one is acceptance and I guess
some peace. Yeah, the gifts that come from a person who is experiencing ADHD, the creativity, right? The what do you say? Almost like authenticity in the here and now. Like you get somebody who's so energetic, ready to go, like just, oh, that's it. Like they're just always ready. And then at the same time, they'll flip and get totally hyper-focused on something and can't do all this kind of stuff. If I just looked at that hyper-focus, I said, that person loves fill in the blank, right? Drawing, art, soccer, whatever. That hyper-focus, so it's now they're committed. Then, yeah, but how come all the rest of that stuff in life looks like a dumpster fire? And it's, well, I don't know how helpful then if you just go to that person, well, it's because you have ADHD. If you go to that person and go, let's build some resources so that this stuff can be different. This stuff can be fill in the blank. And you're helping and working. And in some cases, medication can help that, but it isn't the solution to it. And so when we're talking about what's the benefit of a person knowing something, I believe very strongly in helping a person come to the conclusions for themselves is the most valuable piece of clinical assessment or psychological assessment that is overlooked. Right? If I do an assessment for a potential learning disability, right, or learning disorder, sorry, and then we get to that end place, it's not, okay, well, here you go. There's very much plans and streams and things that they can do and do well and learn from and strategies. That's the stuff people aren't seeing.
You don't just give them the diagnosis and tell them that's how it is.
Yeah. Well, now you know. Right. Yeah.
You're there, just left depressed. Now you know. Yeah, you're right.
You got it. You got it.
Forever.
Well, and we say this to like teaching first-year psych classes, second-year psych classes, abnormal psych classes. Do not diagnose yourself. Got it. By the end of that class, like I got 13 personality disorders. No, we just talk. I think I'm depressed, I'm anxious. I have histrionic personality disorder because I like drama. I'm like, what? Where are you getting this? But it's the first thing we say, and it's the first thing people do. And that's even worse because then they think they're experts in the world. So then they go, oh, well, I think you have histrionic personality disorder because you read a paragraph on your psych book. Like, we're in trouble. So that's the process of understanding how it works with you. How do you operationalize it in your world? How does your world operationalize it? That's what anxiety is, right? Social anxiety is a judgment of oneself and a fear that others will see it and judge it. So the solution is not to avoid people. The solution is becoming less judgmental of oneself. And then going and integrating that self and understanding that self in the space differently. So that, like, just like you and I talking about understanding those core beliefs, and a core belief of a person can cause anxiety because it's not being met. If someone tells themselves they're kind and every day they're operating like an asshole, it's going to be tough to figure out if you're really kind. But if that's the person's strategy to survive in the space that they're in, and they're incongruent with the kindness they tell themselves they are, what do? Quit? You just stop going to that space? Or do you just stop being kind? Which one's easier? Like, in some cases, that's, we talk about sport locker rooms, right? Sport locker rooms, a lot of times they're toxic.
Yeah.
And yet then a sport locker room becomes the label for the sport itself. When we know that the majority of people operating in a sport are not that way. But sometimes it's how you become to operate in that space. And then you're hanging on and white knuckling it to the dear life until you either decide you're no longer kind or you quit. So that's very much that friction where we're running into the conflict of, am I actually living and practicing that core belief, or am I ignoring it? Am I getting better at it, or am I just told I'm it? Like, oh, you're so kind. You have to say that you're my mom, right? This bat, right? I'm getting real good at getting rid of compliments that are true. What? It's a strange way to operate in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But we're doing it. That to me is the unlock, or a big part of the unlock and a big part of the how is do that work, understand that that core belief or that value or virtue, whatever you want to call it, is true to you, not just something you like the idea of.
Mm-hmm.
And no one can do that work other than you. No one.
I think not only will I very much benefit from that info, but I know even like for my girlfriend, she's got that piece where it's like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to operate in this, that, because I'm anxious, and that's just a part of who I am. But yeah, I think just that information alone can very much shift your perspective on how to approach, I guess you could say, that issue.
Yeah, 100%.
Beautiful.
100%.
I had one person ask me a question to pivot, bring it back to the sports side, because that is your area of expertise. There is right now the trend in the sentence of the clutch gene, someone that performs right under pressure. And I'm putting in sports, but I know that this information can very much benefit in like day-to-day life, because there is also that high pressure situation where people almost feel like they no longer can operate because there's so much high demand or expectations on what they are meant to complete. So we can even go with the latest one right now, I'd say it's probably like Steph or Braun. Would you say is a clutch gene itself? Is it a thing? Is it something that can be worked towards? Because I oftentimes found, even for myself personally, when I do get into a very high demand or high pressure situation, it's very easy to get lost in your thoughts and then almost forget the physical that you already do have. You no longer become autonomous in your actions.
Yeah.
Is that a piece, or is that something that can be worked towards? How do you view that whole subject?
Yeah. This is best practice, good science, that the suggestion that that's an it factor is completely debunked. That it is by far not something that is a genetic feature to someone. If there is a genetic feature to someone, it is more likely a personality characteristic, which for years and years and years and years and years, personality science has sought what's the ideal personality construct for high performance people. And that has, again, not been successful, right? Trying to profile the ideal personality. There are traits that are usually, say, for instance, like, high conscientiousness, like a great work ethic. Okay, so someone's really predisposed to work hard, but that still only frames conscientiousness. That doesn't tell, if I'm highly conscientious, that I'm going to be successful as an athlete in this route. Like that's not how that works. But we love the idea of it. It's romantic, but it's just not true. If you talk about someone whose capabilities are maximized in moments that are called high pressure, they may actually be more calm because of the mental skills, because they've learned the mental skills, because they've scaffolded the mental skills, because they've gone after them with the same diligence that they have the physical skills. That is what draws in that supposed it factor. When we've romanticized the idea that, we'll look at one person and we'll say, oh man, they're so clutch under pressure. But what happened to LeBron James's, great under pressure when, I can't remember who the player was that shot the ball when he shouldn't have shot the ball. When they were playing with the Cavs.
Yes.
Yeah.
JR?
Oh, yeah. And so like what happened to his composure then?
Yeah.
Like Braun lost his shit. Like absolutely lost his shit. But then everybody excused it. Well, I would have too. Well, but I thought he had the it factor. So when we draw discrepant thought to things like that, the situation certainly warranted a high level of emotional response. But we wouldn't criticize based on the pressure. We'd criticize based on a lack of control. And when he didn't have control, his emotional states were much, much higher. When we look at it, sports, very public domain, you got to give him the ball, you got to give him the rock, you got to, whatever those wonderful commentaries are, they still stress his mental skills. They'll strain his mental skills. And by not doing the mental training, you don't get the skill.
And
Just
what
like-
is that mental training that you speak of?
Well, George Mumford was one of, he was Kobe's, Jordan's, Pippen's, and Kobe resisted that training.
You the one that
years.
wrote Relentless? Is that what it is? No.
Oh, he wrote The Mindful Athlete and Unlocked.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, being non-judgmental to your thoughts is, if we believe that LeBron just doesn't entertain the possibility of a loss, we'd be ignorant. It doesn't even enter his mind. Are you in his mind? Right? The reality is that situation is a game. And there's a lot on the line. Commentators are the ones that map on the drama. The athletes, in some cases, are the most calm when they're out there because that's when they're the most competent. We're the ones that call it pressure. They may just be out there having a blast and being playful. Steph Curry, given permission early in his career to just shoot. Trust yourself. Trust yourself. Trust yourself. Trust yourself. Trust yourself. Now, if I snap my fingers and I go, to a basketball player, okay, you got to just trust yourself. And that player throws the ball up and, I sub him out. I can't have you making mistakes like that. I just usurped his trust of himself. I whittled away the possibility of a mental skill. I did nothing for that athlete. I made the game more important than their ability to trust. So I've done harm in a lot of ways by making it more about how frustrated I was that I told the athlete to trust themselves, and then they made a mistake, or they made a wrong read, or they made something. And I just said, well, I can't trust you. You better trust you, but I can't trust you. It's like, what? So like when we talk about it factors, is sitting down and doing, number one, I think is a big part is self-talk, right? How do we talk to ourselves is not unique to sport. Because we go everywhere with ourselves. So how we talk to ourselves is very much an us thing, self-talk, right? What are some of the words that others use that tend to be abrasive for you? Well, that's words for them, but they ring something in you. And so doing that work means if I decide and I know and I understand and I appreciate and I come to terms with and I'm non-judgmental, that term, it loses power when others try. But I've done that work. And imagery, right? Talking, understanding, appreciating, nuancing motivation, right? Getting better at controlling attention, regulating attention, understanding concentration, doing deep focus activities, right? And learning how to appreciate and train and push the mind, or guide the mind. I'm going to say push the mind. There's that word, right? Guide the mind in a way that strengthens you. And Dr. Michael Gervais talks about living inside out. And pressure is outside in. And pressure outside in causes stress. And all that does should, in a beautiful world, draw attention to the person that says, hey, I wonder what it is about that pressure thing that makes me tell myself something not really great. Stress is inside out. If I get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger at working and understanding myself, living and practicing the mental skills, then those things aren't pressure anymore. They can be identified as pressure by others. But because I'm living inside out, right, I'm right on the cusp or the edge of ability to cope with, work with, thrive under higher and higher and higher levels of stress. That's not a genetic thing. That's a training thing.
Yeah, to simplify, so literally just focusing on honing in your intrinsic skills
And accepting the extrinsic factors.
Yep.
And that's how you could really shut that out so that you don't crack, I guess you could say, under pressure.
Under pressure. Yeah. And bunny ears very much. It's like, this is super pressure. And I think there's lots of ways to go about that. But I think the core practice in that is to working with people in our field. And there are more and more and more professionals who are interested, fascinated, and very good at helping people train those mental skills, to understand those mental skills, to get those mental skills, to know how concrete they are rather than, just having someone yell at you that you've got to be more disciplined, right? You have to be committed. Okay. I always love that statement in sports. It's like, we are going to be a disciplined team. And I'm just standing there just wondering, I wonder how many people could actually tell me or him or her what that means to them right now. And where are you on it? Right? Discipline is all these 10 things. Got it. Right? Have you ever had those 10 things in your life? No, never done them before in my life. So this is going to be good.
A boss.
Right? There you go. There's your boss, right? Do it, right? So I feel like when and it's becoming more and more and more mainstream to understand mental training the same way we physically train, and the importance of it right? It's not just for the people at, in the NBA or the people at the Olympic level. It's for people at all levels. And when we do it with the sort of attention and, deliberate sort of periodized way that we do physical training now, you're seeing more mentally refined people that really do increase their ability to do all those things, right? Understand nuances of motivation, right? Not label themselves in a negative way. I'm super emotional. Great. How do we use that? Oh man, I can't stand people who aren't emotional. And that's not how you use that. Like, right? You're not passionate enough. Why? Because of how you demonstrate passion. You don't know how they're passionate, but you're just accusing them of not being because they're not outgoing and gregarious and loud and high-fiving everybody and all that kind of stuff. So you label them as not passionate. Those two athletes need different mental skills, right? That's great, wonderful. I still remember getting the training program from the university that I played football at. We got the strength training program. Well, I played football. Offensive linemen, defensive backs, quarterbacks, running backs, linebackers, receivers. This is the strength program. Okay. Right? Like, I'm almost certain that the 330-pound 6'8" tackle requires just a few different things in their program than the 6 foot, 200-pound defensive back. But I'm just thinking. I'm not a strength. There's some nuances in there, right? Mm-hmm. For sure. And there's same thing when it comes to mental skills. Mm. So, yeah. Great question. Awesome. We're going to start on a big one.
Yeah. No, but yeah, no, 100%, because I think it definitely does help and apply into like also everyday situations, not only sport. I truly believe that sports play a big reflection on how you deal with day-to-day life too. And for me personally, when it comes down to going under pressure, that can also be, or when I do feel the pressure, because when I'm playing soccer, it's weird. Sometimes I'll feel the pressure, sometimes I won't, but I oftentimes find that I will feel the pressure when, one, I haven't done the work, I'm not prepared mentally or physically, or if I'm doing a skill that I have not put enough repetition in. So that's when every other aspect comes in, you could say. And then that can easily be applied to, let's say, if I'm learning a new skill, whether it's I'm trying to market myself, or whether I'm trying to sell a program to someone and tell them, okay, this is how, yes, I'm a trainer, but I'm trying to tell you to, come train with me. That piece I'm not yet fully equipped with. So then there's all these outside factors that come in. Now I'm under pressure. But so what I'm realizing is to be able to break out of that pressure from the outside and to the point where people say, oh, now he's become clutch because he always comes through, is through action to build like mindful strength or
mindful practice,
or through the repetition and action to then be able to just be comfortable in the state or in the environment that you're in, whichever the piece is. Truly appreciate that. I think I will definitely be able to benefit from it a lot, but people would too.
Awesome. I've had an absolute freaking blast hanging out and chatting with you, laughing with you, and this is so much fun.
Thank you for giving me the time, honestly, because it was completely out of the blue, but I so appreciate it, and I really I'm grateful for this conversation.
Then gratitude goes both ways, and I mean, I have the positive side of envy for how much fun you have in social media and how good you are at those kinds of things. And so, like I say, like envy has this positive side because I'm like a huge cheerleader and I'm like, man, I love this. I wish I could do this stuff. And then it's like, you could do this stuff and it's going to take me 27 hours. And I don't think I can do that in 27 hours. So I'm going to stay over here in this lane and just cheer the hell out of people who are really good at it. So I love you sharing that journey with me. That's awesome, man.
No, thank you.
And was there anything that you wanted to let anyone know about, whether it's through your practice or things that you got going on?
I feel like the number one thing that helps us understand that inner search is to have somebody who's with you along that way. And as therapists, as sports psychs, as clinical psychs, finding people who are certified, who are trained, who understand this, who know how to be, present with you in that journey that you trust is absolutely fundamentally necessary and has zero to do with stigma. And I will relentlessly work at reducing that stigma for the rest of my life. But to note that the most of us in the field, we've been on the couch too, right? That proverbial couch. We've been in that room. We're doing that work within ourselves, and we're acquiring the skills to do it in order to be a better practitioner, but a better self anyway. Those are all mental skills, and they're all acquirable. So I know that people who are striving for higher levels for themselves in their worlds, there's assistance, there's people to stand with you, there's all of that available. It's just a matter of deciding to do it. And often stigma is the thing that stands. So, I have a billion projects on the go too. Yeah. So,
Nice. Anything that's coming up in the near future?
I'm really hopeful. I'm finishing up my first study. Hopefully that'll be published. Fingers crossed, maybe a couple months. I've taken on being more diligent in writing my book called Growth of a Fixed Mindset. So we all talk about how do we have all this fixed mindset stuff? And like, this is how you get a growth one. It's like, well, how'd you get a fixed one? So that's my book. And hopefully by the end of the year, that'll be done too. So
beautiful. Now, again, thank you. I hope that we can do this again sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
I could go on for days. I got a list of things I would love to ask you about.
Me too. Thank you.
Well, pleasure.
Awesome, man. Nice work. You're really good at this. You're really good at this, man.
No, I had such a wonderful conversation with Matt Bain today. If you guys enjoyed it, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment anything that you'd love to hear in the future. Thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful day and stay blessed.